me? Somebody else will remind me. Okay, am I recording? Okay, all right. So I'm not even going to ask if you've got any questions, so because I want to get my own say in. So what I want to do today is kind of not quite a recap, but a little bit of a recap around two areas. I'll explain as I go along, and then we'll talk a little bit about core. There's not a huge amount to talk about it. We'll take it from there. So what kind of tying into the core module today, because now we are fairly far into this, you know, we're way over halfway, and I'm expecting you guys to starting to piece things together. A lot of questions about some things, I'm sure, and other things not so much, etc. All right. So what I've been doing, my job on this course, as I see it, is to do two things. One is to make you question everything, pretty much, okay? Question you as a yoga teacher, you as a yoga practitioner. And to my side is the anatomy, the movement science behind what we do in yoga. So what I want to talk about today, and I'm just going to select a few things from the modules that we've covered already, and I want to get some feedback from you about why we say certain things in yoga. Okay, so it's a debate. Please don't get me wrong, there is no, well, there is a right and there is a wrong in some of these things, but you are so welcome to your own opinion and to argue that you're already teachers. I can just tell you what I know, and then it's kind of up to you guys what you want to do with it afterwards, right? So out of you have seen, as we've gone through modules, I've highlighted specific things that we generally tend to say as yoga teachers. I know not all of you are teaching a lot, but you've heard it, most of you, as yoga practitioners. So right from the very beginning, we'll sort of scrap the feet stuff. One of the first things we were talking about, but very lightly, was the yoga cue knee over ankle in Warrior 2. Do you remember that back in the dawn of time, back there? Okay, now, so I will say to you, okay, you know, we cue knee over ankle in Warrior 2, but then we'll put the person into Malasana, into a squat, where the knee is going over the ankle, right? And we don't cue, don't let your knee go over your ankle. And in life, as we know, if you want to walk up or down stairs, you have to let your knee go over your ankle, otherwise you're not going anywhere. Okay, so what I want to know from you, and there's lots of different examples, things like knees not turning out in back bends. Remember, we talked about that as well. Hyperextension, we don't want hyperextension of the knee. So we've got very specific cues, which most of you, I think, have heard or even said yourself. I know I have. And what I want to know from you is, with those things, let's just keep it to knee. Why? Why have we been taught those things? Why have we heard those things? Why do we say those things? Caro.
So knee over ankle, or like not letting the knee go over the ankle, but keeping it stacked or a bit behind, is the intention behind it is to protect the knee and to put not so much strain on the knee, because that's going to be potentially damaging. And like stuff like turning the knees out in back bends, because it's supposed to crunch the lower back and the nerves running through the SI joint, and might be able to cause back pain. So it's like to protect the knee and the lower back.
And the lower back. So that's in your experience. Claire, you've got your hand up, I think.
Yes, it's true. It is up and now it is down. So I would say, so Catherine, you've like spun my whole world upside down, because on one hand, I want to say to you, okay, so we would have cued these things because, okay, from my experience, it's functional movement. It's making sure that you're supporting the skeleton, supporting the body, making sure that your body doesn't go into pain and sorrow. But now I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea why we cue any of this stuff. I'm lost. Everything is over. None of it is true. Who knows why we say these things?
That for me is, you and I had a chat right in the beginning when Claire's mind was being blown a little bit too much. And I said that the whole thing is that on this course, we will give you lots of information. You process it the way you wish. Just for me, if I have a yoga teacher, go to a yoga teacher, the one thing I would want from that yoga teacher is for the yoga teacher to be open to new knowledge, new information, and to change. And I would hate to go to a yoga teacher who says, no, I'm really sorry, Ashtanga is the only way, or knee over ankles, the only way. And I love that you are open and that your mind may be blown and you may go back to your original thought. So that, I love that, Claire, I really do. Ava.
I think it's got a lot to do with exactly what Claire just told us, that some things emerged when we didn't know as much as we know today. Like, think about how long people really believed that the earth is flat, even though there were like evidence enough that there isn't, and there are still people who think it. And it's just, if you are told things often enough and you don't have a clue and you just believe it because you don't question, then you will pass it on to the next and pass it on to the next, and things that are repeated often enough tend to be the truth. So if you hear it here and you hear it there and you don't question it, and then my experience in a lot of educations was that most of the educations, they don't do what we do here, and that's what I love here, is in most educations you're just told that things have to be done this way. And they will maybe even tell you that is because you want to protect your knee or you want to protect your back, but that's it then. And full stop. So, and then you pass it on and you just believe it. It's the same when you go to a doctor and the doctor tells you, okay, you've got this and you have to take this medication, you do it. Yeah. And the problem is really that you're not questioning. And I think an additional thing is that a lot of these things seem to be, and it's a vicious circle, seem to be pain related. You might your knee might start hurting if you point it too far forwards in certain situations. And if you're then additionally told that it's bad for you, it will hurt even more. So it's like self-fulfilling prophecy in some times as well. So that's why it persists, even though we know better now.
Well, I don't know that we do. And what I want to say about us always being taught like that is, I've been doing yoga for quite a long time, as you know, and I came from yoga when it was very traditional. So it was Ashtanga, Iyengar, Shivananda, that was it. They never cued knee over ankle, ever, never. In Ashtanga, if you do drop backs, they actively encourage you to turn your feet out. Okay, and when I came to Vinyasa, I'm like, what are they talking about? So what I'm saying is it's a relatively new thing in the 20 odd years that I've been doing yoga, where the talk has shifted from just drop back and get down there somehow to, no, that kind of thing. So Janine, I think you were next, Taryn, you were next, and Firdaus. Remember that, because I won't, okay?
Gosh, I think Eva said exactly what I was going to say, but I'm a new yoga teacher, and you kind of do what you taught in your very first yoga class, and that's the way things were taught. I mean, when I tell Celeste that is not important, she's horrified. I'm like, but it's not, your knee is not going to explode. Or if your knee is slightly turned in Warrior 2, it's fine. You're not even there for 2 seconds. So, I mean, the alignment looks good. And yes, you work different muscles if you activate the knee or turn the knee in a certain way, or those sort of little cues. But yeah, it's what we've been taught. And it gets stuck in your brain.
Interestingly, and I wrote this down, I don't want to read it all to you, but we just finishing our 200-hour course now. They finish tomorrow. And they have been taken through this similar system to what you guys have been taken through. Lots explained to them. They've done peak post sequencing. They've worked on loading, la, 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 la. They've passed their teaching practicals. They've done everything. And they had to do an adjustment practical for me, which was 10 very small adjustments the best we can do online. All did it. There's a video of it. They kind of copy it on somebody that they've got at home. And I got a video from a woman who had passed everything with flying colors. And it was her adjustment practical. I couldn't believe it. I don't want to read it all to you because it was so long. It's about a 15-minute thing that they have to do. She came out with every cue that I question, every single one. So she came up with Tadasana, make sure the pelvis is tucked, okay? Make sure you are not anterior tilting. I mean, it was just after we'd done the pelvis module and I was like, what? Okay, only go as far forward as you can keep your spine straight. She did. Pyramid pose, tuck the pelvis. And this is somebody we've just trained, right? Literally in the process. And I sent her a message and I said, her name's Nicola. Nicola, where are you getting these from? Because they're completely opposite to what Laura and I would say. And she said, oh, no, that's how her yoga teachers at home teach. So she just thought it was really good to add in those instructions when she was doing an adjustment practical. And it blew my mind because it was like, we're saying the opposite, but something else in her believes the yoga teachers that she's got at home. And all of these things come out. So I made her go through each one. And then she was like, oh no, because she was just saying it, not understanding it. It was saying, make sure the pelvis is tight. Make sure you only go forward as far as your spine is able to remain straight. This language that is kind of, I was just listening to Tegan talking earlier about dreaming in German, you know, and it's like that language filters into us as yoga practitioners. And even when we're on courses doing all that language is the same language in our brain that we haven't actually gone, hang on a second, I've just learned the opposite. But this is still coming out of my mouth. It was amazing. I was so glad she did it because it made me think, I bet then half of them have got that language in their head and will pop out no matter what we say. Sorry, who is next? Taryn.
Yeah, that's literally exactly what I was going to say in terms of, I think it like maybe also stems from the fact that what you said in the beginning of the course when we were saying how much we trust our teachers and like how much trust people have in us when we teach. So maybe I think it like stems from there where, you know, I'm in a yoga class and I do put my full trust in the teacher and the teacher cues these types of things. And then I don't question it. And then I take it to my practice and I teach that as well. And then I think it's like my students then will be like, okay, well, we trust her. So then they don't question. And until we come together and actually question it, I feel like it just stems and it's just making this whole circle of we just saying these things that we're not actually sure whether it's been questioned and been researched.
And again, that is very interesting because what I've been watching, and I was watching the 200 hours doing their adjustment practical, and I'm constantly amazed, and I include myself, as you can clearly see, of how much yoga teachers talk. It's like, so if I go to you guys, just let people stand in Tadasana, shut up, don't say anything, just say, come to the front of your mat, feet together, end of story. It's almost like yoga to be like, no, but we need to say stuff. We need to say, roll the shoulder blades together, turn your palms out, lengthen the spine, make sure the neck is on, blah, 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 blah. And then almost to take that away, if it's anatomical cueing that may be not correct, it's like, well, then what do we say? You know, it's a, and then I go back to like Ashtanga yoga where they just count it. You just get counted. That's it. They don't say lengthen your neck or your tailbone or your, I'm not saying they're right either. I'm just saying it's like, it's almost that we fill the gaps with these things as well. So interesting comments. Okay, Firdaus, and then Ashton, I think, and then Sandra, yay.
Catherine, very much, I think what you were hinting at there, you know, if you think about when the 200-hour training came to be, and we're looking at like the last 23, 24 years, excuse me, you're getting a situation where putting out a lot of yoga teachers, as you would know, and so there's some sort of standardization that takes place. Like I'm quite, maybe concerned's too harsh a word, but I've been thinking about the standard of teachers that come out of a lot of trainings, and we've got like thousands of 200-hour teachers produced every year who think they can solve every biomechanical problem of every person they see, but they know very little anatomy. So I'm wondering, there's a bigger conversation, I guess, if the standards don't need to be a bit higher, and you need to actually have some kind of movement studies when you are a yoga teacher, so that you're not, and the same with like a history and philosophy side of it, so you're not just talking crap basically because it makes you feel good. I'm feeling so like agitated about it now.
But it's a real thing. You know, Yoga Alliance have changed all their rules, and now in order to be a 200-hour teacher trainer, you have to be a 500-hour teacher. And we all had to fill in a whole lot of bits on it. And one of the things that I felt so strongly about was, please, because before we had, I think, 5 hours of anatomy was compulsory of the 200 hours. I've got 90 hours. It's like, and I had to lie to Yoga Alliance. Because you have to fill in criteria. We teach this, and this. And I was like, I have to lie and undersell the fact that I'm teaching anatomy, that I'm teaching movement, or whatever, because it wasn't important to them. So, and we said, like, please make more anatomy compulsory. But then that's a whole other argument as well. Ashton, I think, Sandra, then Mandana.
Yes, hi, Catherine. Firstly, I agree wholeheartedly with everything that's been said thus far. Thoroughly enjoying the conversation. I just had an idea that hasn't been mentioned yet, and I'm wondering what you think about it with regards to why these things are cued and where this rhetoric sort of comes from in the yoga teaching circles. And I wonder whether or not it's an acquainting kind of correct alignment to safety. So I know you said Ashtanga doesn't really mind and they throw you into a pose, but I know some more traditional yoga styles are very prescriptive when it comes to alignment, placement. And I wonder whether or not when Vinyasa sort of was getting off the ground and has continued to develop, whether people have equated correct with safe. So correct alignment, because yoga is seen historically as a practice that's good for the body. So I wonder whether or not teachers started equating this as yoga, traditional alignment. It's been thought out, it's been devised to be safe. So the correct alignment equates to safe alignment. And I wonder whether or not that plays a role.
I really actually don't have an answer for this, where this language came in from. I know that definitely I've done like 8 years of Iyengar yoga, like, the head of the Iyengar Institute in this country taught me. And if anybody was going to talk safety, she didn't mention it once, does not come in, but they damn well want your knee over your ankle.
Exactly.
Like this shape with your arms, they want it aligned because it's got to look like that. That's what the pose is. That's what we're working towards. So there's that aspect of it as well from there. But there was never, ever an element of, if you do that, you will break. They probably should have been actually in Iyengar yoga with what they did to us. They should have maybe been maybe don't do a 15-minute headstand. You're going to maybe hurt your neck. If you go like this afterwards, probably not a good sign. So yes, I absolutely agree. It's a language that's come in, and it's come in because it's safe. And that's what I'm trying to get to, I think, anyway. Sandra.
I want to say the same like Ashton. So I think there's a lot of alignment beliefs. So they say, okay, it has to look like this, and therefore it's safe.
Yes. Yeah, so why do we think that happened? Vidette, so you've got your hand up, and then Ava. Claire, did you have your hand up, or is it from before?
No, it's up, but I'll wait for everyone else. I don't mind.
So Vidette, then, because Claire's been up for ages, Vidette, then Claire, then Ava. So I cannot keep track. So Vidette.
Hello.
Can't hear you.
Okay, sorry, I didn't unmute. Yeah, I think that was another thing that I find so interesting, and that Yoga Alliance also does sort of make quite a big thing, is continuing education, where many people have done the yoga teacher training, and it has been I don't know, however many years, and you do just get stuck as everything sort of develops and a lot comes out. And I think, yeah, that's maybe why it is a really big reason to continue with it. Something I never thought of in the past until I joined as a member, and that always stuck out at me, thinking we do get stuck, we need to keep going, and you can only do so by, yeah,
absolutely
continuing.
And
Yeah.
I think as well, but the problem comes into being is that people go out there, like Firdaus was saying, and they do a 200-hour course. There's no movement science in it, or very little anatomy in it. And there's no aspect of training in it, as in like progressive load training, that kind of thing. But then those people have, spent a lot of money and a lot of time going to a teacher that they love, probably, or, whatever, somebody that's convenient. And they've done their 200-hour, they're a yoga teacher. How then can they go back and question what they were taught? Unless they come onto a course like this, where I sort of throw things out and hope you're open-minded and that you can think about different things. It's like people are going to be very protective over their education, the one that they've chosen, right? I mean, they're not going to turn around and go, oh, well, my teacher was clearly wrong when they said, it's threatening, I think, in a way, because then maybe it questions. You have to question, if you're questioning your training or questioning your teaching, then maybe you also have to question yourself as a yoga teacher, which is like really, really hard, and you've done all this work and you've taught for however, but it's a thing that I feel like so many yoga teachers have, where if they had more of a science mind, science basically changes daily, and you've just got to, I'm sure it's the same as Firdaus with philosophy and the Happy Yoga Project, where they're just finding new stuff out all the time, and then we have to update, and it's okay. It's, we say in yoga, that nothing's permanent. There's just change is the only permanent thing, that we move, we change, nothing, we can't hold on to anything except we hold on to our ways, and won't budge. It's like really, there's no training in the 200 hours, not just about anatomy, but also about that stuff changes. Mr. Iyengar changed his Trikonasana. It was really, really short, then it became really, really long. I have no idea why, but whatever, he changed, right? And it's like, if we can just teach people that change is brilliant, and to change means you're open-minded, that as a teacher you will be better, you don't have to accept everything, but if you open your mind, then you can explore, maybe get a little bit better. It's that, I think, that is that we should be taught as yoga teachers. It might change. What I tell you today may be different tomorrow, and that's okay. We'll just update it and do something else. Sorry, who was next?
I think it's me.
Claire. There you go.
I was just going to add my other 2 cents, and it's part of what's been my struggle with so I'm super keen on being open-minded, but then at the same time, when these things work in your own body, it's almost difficult to shift out of the idea. So I'm somebody who cues the posterior tilt, tuck the hips under, because it worked and has worked and still works so well for my body. So then when we start saying, nah, you don't really need to, that's when it starts going baffly, because you're like, okay, these cues, these things have helped me get places. Now you're saying it's not relevant, kind of thing. But then I think what's also exciting, and from my point of view of what I'm experiencing, it's like, oh, but hang on, maybe then the issue isn't sitting in the hips, maybe it's somewhere else, and I'm so fixated on this one thing. We get fixated on ideas and notions. So I think that's also that comes in. Go for it, Dora, Catherine.
So I think also, again, we can't generalize. So you have to understand where I'm coming from. I'm not saying posterior tilting is bad, or even to instruct posterior tilting in Tadasana is bad, or posterior tilting in Utkatasana is bad. What I'm saying is that it's all, I'm expanding, I'm not reducing, I'm saying both are fine. So it's like, so you can, let's take Utkatasana chair, that you can instruct posterior tilt in Utkatasana, because that's just a different shape, right? You can also instruct anterior tilt, do a little kind of a back bend in Utkatasana, because that's just going to strengthen your spinal muscles. So what I'm saying is you can do both. But if you just generally say as a flat out rule, like in Tadasana, everybody must posterior tilt, then that doesn't translate, because the minute they then fold into Uttanasana, they have to go into an anterior tilt. So they're the posterior tilt's gone. So what I'm saying is expand it, like do both. Like if you think that posterior tilting helps something in chair, in Tadasana, yay, but what is that? What is it helping? You know, and what are you doing it for? So it's much more about not taking away, but adding. This is the thing with peak post-sequencing and progressive load training, is that it's adding tools to you as a teacher, giving you more tools to go, hey, hang on a second, I want to teach Urdhva Dhanurasana today, so I'd like to get my spinal muscles going a bit. How do I do that? Like, what's the best pelvic tilt for that one in Utkatasana? Or I'm going into halfway lift, Uttanasana. Should I have the arms out? Should I have them back again? Which one's going to work the back muscles more? So it's more adding to things rather than just saying, which yoga teachers tend to go, don't turn your feet out in a back bend. Don't have your knee going over your ankle, those kind of things, which are absolutes. And you can say, don't have your knee going over your ankle in Warrior 2, because that's the shape, but you can't say it's going to be injured if it doesn't. That's more where I'm coming from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm actually loving it so much, because Catherine, you'll have a chuckle at me possibly, because I sent you that crazy voice note of panic and horror, and I was literally sitting down yesterday and I'd done the core videos, and then I'd written like 10 questions down, and then I've started going back to the beginning videos to work through them again, just to make sure I'm grasping everything. And then you answer all the questions, and then I was like, you see, you're getting so panicked, you're missing all the information that's right here. That's the point, is to get out of fear. And it's moving into that allowance. You don't have to be one or the other. You can be both. In fact, I'm sure our bodies would thrive being able to do all the movements instead of going, no, you'll damage yourself or rip a new one if you do that.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like we know, and Ava said it way back in the beginning, we know that the motor control by our nervous system, if we take our body through lots and lots of different joint ranges, so that's knee over the ankle, knee way back from the ankle, all of those ranges, and that we're strong enough and we do the loading correctly, the training, it's actually better for us. We'll be more mobile, more healthy, more of those. I think there's more in it. There's less in vinyasa. If we work according to just safety and protection all the time, in my opinion, we're making people less strong, less able, I suppose, at the end of it. So it is that, Claire. I'm glad you've gone back. Okay, Mandana, Lauren, Caro, I think. Order, Mandana, you were saying something.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
I thought my mic was off. Yeah, I just wanted to go back regarding what you were saying in terms of anatomy and how teachers cue in general. It's something that I've noticed a lot actually here in South Africa and a lot in the US as well, which for me for years was a complete Chinese language, and took me to be very stiff with my own body, thinking that movement should be in this particular shape when doing yoga, but could be in a different when doing weight training, or which is very silly, shows that I wasn't thinking further. So yeah, I think there's a saying in French where we say we're just being stupid and we follow, as we said, the rules without thinking deeper. But yeah, it can be dangerous actually, because you end up hurting yourself, because if you're not letting the body being as it should be, you end up creating injuries as well through this, I believe. I ended up creating stiffness in my hips, creating maybe stiffness in my knees at some point, because it was so rigid. And fear also, thinking that if I'm going to do it in that different way, I am going to create that pain. So you end up making it happening anyways.
And I think there is a real valid point in that. I mean, we talked about it, and it was in the core module a little bit, that nocebo, where we're actually saying to people, you know what, if you turn your feet out and you
Yeah.
stretch your glutes, you'll watch out for your lower back. That kind of language around like, you know, I best not have my knee going over my ankle. I mean, you're all yoga teachers, and most of you were horrified when I said that. You know, it's, and I think I told you, I say in the knee module, one of my first 500 hours would not have it. She was a personal trainer, and she was like, no, I refuse to accept it. The knee must stay over the ankle. It's bad, you know, and she could, it was so much a part of her. She would not accept it. And I say, I don't know where she is now today in terms of that way of thinking, but I think it really does, it's ingrained in us. And it, quite surprisingly, how much it's ingrained in us when we hear it from our teachers. Okay, Lauren.
There's one more thing.
Then for Dose.
Hi. So yeah, I love these conversations, because I've always questioned like especially like activate or don't activate your glutes and bridge kind of thing, and all the anatomy that we've been going through. I absolutely love it, because I feel like what everyone's saying is so right. So in one way, you want, as a teacher, for people to be aware of the shape that you're trying to create for the perfect body. But also, I always say in my classes, like, don't look what anyone else looks like, feel what it's feeling like. So that goes back to anatomy, like where should you be feeling it instead of what should you be looking like. And I love like the whole challenge of everything. And then what I wanted to say, it's like, instead of being rigid, just make them curious. Like, go into your body and feel what's happening, instead of going, you have to be like this, you have to be like that, this is a shape, because everyone looks different in a shape. It's where you're feeling it.
Exactly. And also, everybody will be feeling it in a different place as well. You know, we're all complete individuals, and how much glute I use to get up into Urdhva Dhanurasana, and Lauren, who's a backbender type person, it's like, it's going to be different. You know, if somebody who's got massive shoulder flexibility is going to have a way easier time getting up there than someone like me. So it's all just movement, you know, at the end of the day. Cara, I think you were next, and then for Jess. Let's just check.
Yeah, thank you. I want to relate to what Claire has said about how certain things do work for her, and then it maybe gets her sometimes a bit like, not confused, but it's just like new input, and playing the role of Eva here a bit, maybe by bringing the nervous system in. For me, like, the question is the pose actually working for me because of the anatomical shape, or is it working for me because of what I was told to believe? Because, for example, I made the experience, I used to feel like quite sore in my lower back when people had told me like, oh, don't overarch. So every time I would go into like a deeper back bend, I was scared, oh, is this overarching? Maybe I'm hurting my lower back. And I felt like really sore in it in consequence of that.
Sorry, Cara, can I just clarify? Do you mean you felt sore because you weren't overarching, or because of the movement you were doing to stop overarching, or because you got that worry in your head?
In an arch. So when I was arching my lower back, connected to this knowing, oh, it's kind of bad for you, I used to feel like, oh yeah, I can feel that, like arching my lower back a lot. It feels sore, it feels like a lot of compression, it can't be good. And as my thinking shifted, also the sensations shifted. So I think it's like a really interesting point or perspective to explore. Am I feeling what I'm feeling because of the physical shape? Because the nervous system has this like massive impact, which we all know by now. You know, there's the nocebo effect, but there's also this placebo effect. If someone tells you this is safe, you might actually have a different sensation in your body as well. So just wanted to throw that in.
Absolutely. And also, we don't know what happens when. So, you know, if somebody comes to your class and they're just doing bridges, but you're instructing, don't go into an arch because you're going to hurt your lower back. Make sure it's not an excessive arch, etc., etc., etc. I mean, I've been in classes where people have just done bridge, and they have probably given me, I don't want to exaggerate, but maybe 20 instructions for bridge, little bridge, right? Not wheel, bridge. And then you're all like, oh, what's happening with my inner knees? Am I spiraling my thighs inwards? What's going to hurt? All of those things. And they're holding you for a while in bridge. But then as you keep coming to the class, you might be nervous around the things, but you get stronger. You get better at doing, hopefully, if the teaching is correct, you get better at doing the pose. You get a little bit bigger bridge, or a little bit stronger in your spine, or a little bit more able to open up. So it's mental progressive loading for the nervous system, and physical progressive loading is the way that I think we should be teaching. It's like, you know, it is so irrelevant to me whether somebody can do a trikonasana or a handstand or whatever. That what's relevant to me is that I make people stronger, mentally and physically. That's my aim. And I know that I can't do that if I go, don't do that, it's dangerous. That's doing it. You know, if we take that in, I'll come to you now, Eva, and for those of us, if we go back right to the beginning and we look at everything that everybody does, physios, biokineticists, people who do athletic training, like, you know, tennis players, whatever the case may be, they work on progressive overload, progressive training. And that is from whether you are injured to whether you're an Olympic athlete. They are going to load you in the right way for you at the right time to make you stronger. And if we go back to just simple scientific fact, the thing that makes us not strong is what? Not doing anything, which is what we're instructing in yoga. We're saying, don't do that. It's going to hurt you. So that's doing nothing. And that's not teaching. That, in my view, that's not teaching. If it's not protective against injury, and I mean, there's hundreds of cues, so we don't, you know, that we'd have to pull apart as well. But it's like, if we don't load, we don't make people stronger, and we're not teaching correctly. And within that, so we could be teaching, like, what's her name? Dale Guthrie, and she's at Holism Health in Joburg. She teaches quadriplegics yoga, quadriplegics, paraplegics, people with stroke. They do, she teaches them yoga, you know, and coming from that point of view to the people that are doing, you know, Ashtanga 3rd, 4th, 5th series that are just like soaring with strong practitioners, that there's a way of training wherever you are to make your presence strong. That's my view anyway. Fuda, sorry, that was a bit of a rant. I apologize.
No, I think this ties into what you're saying, and also what Caro and Claire was saying. I almost wonder if there shouldn't be more of an emphasis on either how to conduct research, because I think people think research is Google, which it isn't, or on how to understand research, so that people are going into anatomy from a research perspective. And like when you present all the different papers, especially at the beginning of the 3rd core video, and you go through like core and lower back pain, and there are people who link the causation and people who don't, and, you know, so on and so on and so on. That actually makes you think, because then you can see there are 10 studies that say there's no connection, and there's 2 that say there is connection, and then you can make up your own mind through looking at evidence. But I don't think people are trained in how to analyze things and then make a sort of critical analysis. And so that's why we're getting the standardized and a lot of the time repetitive and maybe even incorrect teaching, because people don't understand the basis of scientific research and then how to analyze that.
And I had a conversation with Claire Waite. She'll talk to you about it because she went to New York and she studied with a woman called Alison West, and Alison West just does yoga for back problems, okay? And she's big on it, and she's strict and then what was fascinating to me is I've got a health sciences background, so it's beaten into you to question. It's just like, I can't help it. It's just in my brain. But then Claire went there with no research background, and then somebody who's quite ferocious and an expert in a particular field is saying, this is how things are. You cannot question I'm telling you, this is how things are. So most people in the world that don't have a science background, or like Ava, a mathematical background, they're just going to go, wow, okay. You know, this is the specialist, the doctor is telling me this is what, and so, and this is something why I brought the yoga research, and it's in the core module, is because it relates to that. It's like, I believed there was core, that I thought core stability was like a real thing, that if I Googled definition, I'd find it. And it was a shock to me when it wasn't there. So that's why it's in that module. And that's why on the 300 hour, we do teach some kind of yoga research, just so you can see that sometimes information is not good, sometimes it's bad, and it's conflicting. That's the main thing. There's not an absolute, it's conflicting, you know, and then to be able to go, like only Ava here, I'm sort of okay at it, can actually read a paper and look at the stats in the paper and go, wait, hang on a second, are these right? We can't do it. You know, so how do we teach that on a yoga course? It's a really challenging thing. So a little bit, yes, but on the 200 hour, there's so much else going on that, we teach a little bit, but not very much, to be honest. Okay, Ava, and then Lauren, and then, yes, and then we'll probably finish.
Yes, and I think we also have to think about that it might be overwhelming for some people. And
yes.
It is like, to be honest with ourselves, it's much easier to just follow set cues. So it makes teaching way easier. It would be just nice. And I think for a majority of teachers, it would be good to have set cues. But the claim that they are to protect people, that shouldn't be told. You know, it's for beginners, it's really good. And I also think for beginner practitioners, it's good to first start with something in mind to maybe keep their knee over their ankle-ish somehow. And that is, it makes teaching easier, because if you have so many options to choose from and to keep open and things like that, teachers will be overwhelmed, students will be overwhelmed. It makes things more complicated. So I think the need to simplify things also plays a role. And and on the other hand, if we think of our brains, it is really interesting that it's easier for us as well. I was in an Exos movement performance specialist education, and we had to teach there. And every one of us got one specific goal to work on within this course. And for me, it was to reduce my verbal cueing by 30%. It was so hard. It is so hard to do things differently because you rely on that. It is really so hard. And they said, just work 1 year on that. Then you can start with the next thing, because it really takes so long to get it out of your head. This, I have to say something, even if it's something that is really relevant. And I didn't tell them things that weren't solid, but I told them way too much. And that is one thing. And then the other thing is also that it helps our brains. If we teach yoga in a more open, more variable way, it is way harder for our brains, but we will form a lot of new connections in our brains. So it is even like really healthy for us as a teacher, not only on the physical level, but on the mental level as well. So it's always a trade-off. Simplify things for us and for our students, but also make them more valuable for us and them as well.
On the 200-hour course, we make them only give 3 cues per pose. It is so hard. And you know who it's really hard for? And time again, it's for the people that are already movement teachers. The people that teach at gyms and things, I go, pause, do not say anything for that. And they're like, oh, I can't. And it's a real thing. And I want to just come to I'll get to, oh, she's got taken her hand down, then taken. I want to just come to the safety element of there is such a large part of our verbal cueing is around safety in yoga. You know, all the stuff that we've talked about, you know, with how the pelvis should be, you shouldn't have the hips level, they must be square, etc., etc. Okay, but why do we as yoga teachers believe that yoga is so injurious? Does anybody have any idea on the rate of injury in yoga that warrants this level of cueing? Ava.
Well, I don't think that there is so much injury. It would make no sense because we are not loading. We are working with our body weight. But I think that yoga is a form of movement that, first of all, some people are drawn to because it's easy for them if they already have a big range of movement. Some of them come from ballet, where maybe they come with with some pre-existing conditions that they then blame on yoga when they get an injury. And the other thing is that yoga is often advised as some kind of medical care to balance out all the bad things that we do in life, and then we are surprised that we are injured at some point, and we blame it on the yoga and not on the bad things we did in life before or whatever. So that is really, it is funny. And I'm a strong believer that safety is it's subjective. There is that you can't give a student safety in movement. It's always, it depends on the body. So for me, the safest thing is to leave them flexibility. Because that is what Carol said, if I tell them that you are strong, you can't injure yourself, just experiment with different kind of movements and see how it feels. And then I give them a variety of movements to choose from. Then I give them safety and they feel the safety, not only because they are told this is not safe and this is safe.
Okay, so Tegan, you had your hand up and then I'll come to Emma. Do you want to, you had it up, now it's gone away.
No, I was just thinking about like, I think there's a lot of different people who come to yoga. So I think we have people, and I think different trainings also attract different types of people. So we have this group and we're at your training, which obviously means we wanted a little bit more of this anatomy and this unpacking, I think. And then I know that there are trainings, and I don't need to bash a training, it's not my job, but I know that there are trainings that work for people who don't want this. And I think that's what we're seeing is a mix of teachers who come from trainings where we want to unpack things, where we want to kind of have the details and our own understanding as well. And then there are, and it's not against them because I think they serve a community of their own people, but I think that there are people who are not interested in the physical, maybe, like, yes, the physical is an element, but are maybe only interested in the spiritual, or are maybe only interested in whatever other aspects of yoga. So I think, as much as I don't necessarily agree with those teachers, I think that I know a lot of people don't want the anatomy class in a yoga class. They want that. And then it kind of like serves its own thing. I mean, like, I've been to classes where teachers say in child's pose, like, connect to your third eye, and I'm just like, in which universe? And I just think we've got like that kind of scale of what's going on in the yoga industry, never mind knee over ankle or other things. I think like there are quite a few loon bins roaming around just generally.
I think it's a big field. I agree with you. It's such a big field, and with my own trainings, if people want to come onto my trainings, I make damn well sure that they know they're going to get a whole load of movement science and a whole load of this. And if they go, I'm not interested in that, I want much more of a philosophical bent or whatever, I refer them on. I just go to that studio because they are really good at that stuff. And so I agree, there's we've got subtle body work going on, we've got normal anatomy, half of it's wrong, we've got a huge amount of different stuff going on there. And I think it is because there's no real guidelines on what to teach. Like the Yoga Lines doesn't guide us. It just goes, here's like 8 things, teach those sort of by, and that's what you've got. Sorry, Emma, you've been waiting.
No, that's fine. I wanted to say, just back on how many people get injured doing yoga. I've seen a few. I've actually mostly seen people getting injured during Pilates classes.
What? Really?
I kid you not. And I'll tell you my theory on it's because Pilates, I mean, I've been trained in Pilates. That was like the first type of exercise training that we did as physios. And I think it's because Pilates promotes bracing. You holding on to all your muscles because you're trying to keep your core as tight as possible. So I think lots of, yeah.
It's really interesting. I had only two quite extreme experiences through teaching yoga with people going to Pilates because they had back problems. But going to classical Pilates, let me be really clear, where they encourage the posterior tucking of the pelvis and that flat lumbar spine. And both people were almost disabled. And when I mean disabled, I mean like they stopped being able to get out of cars. And I'm not sure what happened. I mean, you're a physio, but it was that constant tucking. And eventually they found, right, people went, you've lost your curve. Like, we need it back. So I was actually shocked at how flattened the curve. One of them, actually, I think it's Janine and Ashton's teacher, Celeste. She was told for 3 years, she was told to keep her knees bent and to flatten her lower back in Pilates because she had a disc herniation from nothing. It turns out it's all genetic. But so she'd walk around with her knees and stand with her knees slightly bent so she could posterior tuck the pelvis. And the pain just got worse and worse and worse. And maybe that's also that stiffening. Claire's going to talk to you a lot about that in back, and I will do it, you know, as we go through core. But it's very, I looked up today how many, because, you know, there's not a lot of research out there, how many injuries there are, like as a percentage in yoga classrooms. It's, you know, and of course it's, you know, the studies aren't great. They normally retrospective studies, so that means that they ask people who have gone to yoga, have you had an injury? So it's not great research, but they use the same thing for CrossFit or running or whatever. And the latest study is 2019, I think it's about 2,500 people, 0.6% reported an injury. Remember, we're not talking about being sore, reported an injury, compared to CrossFit, which reports 50%. Okay, and I'm not saying at all, Ava, don't shout at me. I'm not saying that those are great studies or anything like that, but I'm saying it gives us a kind of guide because they are looking at all of the different, you know, movements. But yoga is not, you know, if somebody goes for a run, we're not going, watch that your knee doesn't go over your ankle, watch that your ankle doesn't roll in, watch that you're not in an anterior tilt or a posterior tilt, or they're just going for a run. I'm not saying yoga is that, because we want something more from it. But what I'm saying is, we really, I want to, and I think you all have, and I love that, is that you're starting to go, why am I cueing this? And Claire, I love where you're coming from as well. It's like, if it works, that's great, as long as we don't cue it for protection. You know, and like Emma was saying last week, you know, for some people in a back bend, and Fidette sent me a message afterwards as well, for some people who've got very bendy backs and that they are fragile somehow in their lower back, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with you saying, lengthen your tailbone, lessen the curve, you know, because it might really work for that person. But it's not a cue for everybody, if that makes sense. So it's not we don't need to be so overprotective. What we rather need to do, in my opinion, is go, how do we get the people to do those poses as best they can for their body in the strongest way? Like, how do we do that? Like, how do we train them so that they can do Urdhva Dhanurasana and feel strong in it? What's needed? You know, what's needed in the shoulders? Where's the strength? Where's the flexibility ranges that they need? How can I make their back muscles strong so that it's okay for them? And not for everybody, because of course it's not. But for most people, it's like, how do we make chaturanga fine? And not do chaturanga where your bum's going up and you're collapsing and rolling the shoulders, etc. How do we make them strong? Like by bringing a little bit of, like Ava says, brain into our teaching. It's harder, but it's more like, what are you guys going to do? Are you, you know, if you're just doing the same cues forever, I think you're going to get bored after about 5 years. Okay, I've been doing this for 20 odd years. If I didn't have all this stuff, it would be terrible. But it's like, but just to grow and learn and train and actually see, you all know that feeling when you get somebody into a bakasana, right? Or into a handstand, or into a back bend, or into something where they've actually got stronger, and you damn well help them to get stronger, and not gone, don't do it, it's dangerous. It's like, and you see what those people look like. It's like, oh my word, look what I could do. I didn't know. It's amazing. Sorry, Emma, were you saying something?
Yeah, I just actually wanted to say something else. Yeah, I thought I'd share this with the class because I think it just proves to you what you can do with an injury. But you know, Catherine, about my hip. I've got chronic hip issues. I've actually got labral tears. One was operated on, and the other one tore probably around the beginning of last year. And I'm still doing yoga, even though yoga sometimes, and it depends on who I practice with, or if I don't listen to myself, brings on my pain, but it hasn't stopped me from trying to get into a handstand. Look, I'm not going to go do the splits because there's no need for me to do the splits. But you can do so much with the body that you've got, and there's not always a medical fix. You know, I mean, I can strengthen it as much as I can. I've got great days, and I've got days that I can hardly get out of bed. But like, you know, it doesn't stop me from doing yoga. And I've actually even told a yoga teacher before from like a very renowned studio here in Joburg, I've told her, listen, if you see me doing something else, you don't have to come correct me, don't cue me, I know what I'm doing. And she honestly felt the need to tell me about my injury, even though I told her my background and how long I've been living with it. And she still felt that she needed to tell me this is how I can strengthen it, and then it will be okay. And I was like, it's not really your job. That's okay.
From a physio, don't tell me how to strengthen it. I know, I know my injury. But I do think it's like buying a yoga. We talk too much. We think we have to fix everything. Like we have to fix people spiritually with injuries. We have to make people stronger. We have to guide them through focus and meditate. It's like, it's quite a big remit. It's like a big job description of like what, you know, and we could do a bit of stuff, but the stuff we've got to do, we've got to know. And like, you've got to also, you know, you guys, all of you've got different issues going on, from injury to your different backgrounds to your experiences and things. And I'm not going to tell you otherwise. I'm just going to, I'm going to ask you to explore. You've all explored. I'm a happy teacher. And you're going to work with what's going on with you. I'm going to try and persuade Vedette to share what she shared with me this morning. It was a very interesting picture of quite an injury. All right. But the point is, you know, you all know your own bodies. You're all exploring, and there's not a single one of you that doesn't want to get stronger physically, and not a single one of you that doesn't want to learn. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on this course at all, right? I'm very happy with this chat. You're so open, and I'm not asking you to buy into what I say. I'm just asking you to take some of this information and go, how can I make myself better by teaching? How can I make myself better by practicing in a certain way? And that is it, Ava. And then guys, just pop up. It's 2:00 if you need to go.
Oh, sorry, and I will be quick. I just want to say something that really helped me a lot was, I was always, I want to do the best for my students, and the way I tend to be is I'm afraid that I do harm them in some way. I got over it over time, but that was in the beginning. I was like, I have the responsibility here, but people are in the end responsible for themselves, and I learned that as well. But the same thing happened with me, like in this first aid courses you have to do. I was always afraid. I told one of them who were teaching, I'm so afraid if I come to a car accident and, you know, there is someone who needs my help and I'm not doing the right thing. And he said, well, but why are you worrying? Because see it that way. You help him, there is a chance that it gets better. You're not helping him, he will die. And that is the thing, you always have to see the other side. Even if we are not teaching people in the like perfect optimal way, it's better than they are staying at home on their couch and doing nothing, because that's exactly what you said, Catherine. Doing nothing is definitely the one thing that they shouldn't do.
Yes.
So anything is better.
At least we're doing that, and we're all learning all the time. You guys are here learning. I go away and I learn like just endlessly, so that we can go out there and help people and make them stronger at the end of the day. Okay, guys, I've got to go because I've got to hop onto the 200 hour now. Oh, I'll send it on the group. Firdaus is doing a subtle body chakra thing for our 200 hours. We've never done it before, and she blew my. She went and spoke to the guys that run the Hatha Yoga Project in London and has come up with it's mind blowing. So if you guys want it to be added to your training, then I'll find a slot. So I'm very excited about it. So yeah, there's lots of thumbs up for Joyce. I don't know if you can. Yeah, so I think it's going to be really interesting, and it sounds very punchy. So yeah, and very different, I imagine, from what you've learned.
Gonna break some people's hearts, I think.
I know. I did a little bit of research myself years ago, and I was like, whoa, not going there. People are going to shout at me.
Go for it, Firdaus. We want it.
Yes. No, that's brilliant. It brings more debate, which is fantastic. Yeah. Okay, guys, I will see you for call whenever it is the next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Catherine, it's 2:30, right? I can have some lunch.
Go and have some lunch, and then I'll be popping on. Well, I won't say anything because it's going to be too intimidating for them if I babble on. So I'll just let them do their thing, but I'll be listening.
Okay, brilliant. See you now.
Bye. Bye.